What's going on, everyone? It has been a Lone Vault Wanderer here to make a video that isn't about Bethesda or Fallout, etc. because I need to mix it up a little bit. I'm going crazy making just one kind of video. And I felt like I haven't made a Bioshock video in a while, so I want to do that now. But I was thinking, what could I talk about? Could I talk about some of the development of Bioshock 1, what I want for Bioshock 3, which I will be doing a video on eventually. But then I thought to myself, look, I like to talk about Bioshock all the time, especially in the podcast. I usually highlight the great things about it, how much I love the game, but I thought what would make an interesting video is me talking about one thing that I actually don't like about Bioshock, because, let's be honest, I think Bioshock is a phenomenal game. It's one of my favorites of all time next to Fallout 3, but no game is perfect, and Bioshock 1 certainly isn't perfect. And if you have this discussion with anyone, even someone that's a Bioshock fan, they'll admit to you that, the game is great, but there are some problems. It has some flaws, and in that regard, some people might bring up the gameplay or the combat, but I want to try and challenge myself in this video, as much as I love the game, to put all of my feelings aside and to talk about the one thing about the game that I actually don't like. And maybe this will bring about some interesting discussion, and I'd like to ask all of you the question: what's one thing about Bioshock that you actually don't like about the game? I'm presuming that most people are going to talk about combat and gameplay, but in any event, let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't played Bioshock and you happen to be on this video for some reason, maybe one of your favorite games, what's one of the things about your favorite games that you actually don't like? And I think trying to challenge yourself in that regard, it's an interesting thought experiment. And it actually took me a while to think about something with Bioshock 1, but I think I've come to something that, thinking back on it, it wasn't the best. This is actually something Ken Levine has touched on in interviews in the past. A lot of people will agree, obviously people that played Bioshock 1, that up until the time that you find about, spoilers by the way, that you find out about Andrew Ryan, the game is great, it's paced well, has a great story, it's a nice build-up, and that shock, that twist, caught a lot of people by surprise and off guard. And then from that point, it kind of went downhill, and the bit in particular that I didn't really like, one, because it's related to it, was the boss battle. Even Ken Levine has mentioned this, that they kind of rushed with the boss battle and they didn't really know what they wanted to do with it. The way he described it, Ken that is, was that it was pretty much just like a bulky naked dude that was hyped up on Adam, and it wasn't really an interesting boss battle. And I think they felt like they just needed to have a boss battle because it was a video game, and they couldn't really see a game ending in any other way, because to be honest, that's how most video games ended at the time and still end to this day. But more specifically, the biggest gripe that I have about Bioshock 1 is not necessarily the entirety of the story as a whole, but the ending of the game, and more specifically, the endings of the game. So obviously spoilers again here, but if you recall with Bioshock 1, there are 3 different endings that you could get in the game, and they were all dependent upon how you treated the Little Sisters. So when you approach different Little Sisters in the game, and there were a bunch of them, I can't remember the specific number, but you had the option to either harvest or to save them. If you harvest a Little Sister, you get more Adam from them, but if you save them, then you get less Adam, but they actually can reward you with gifts throughout the game. So either way, it kind of balanced out. It just depended what your personal view was, because harvesting animation was pretty graphic, and it kind of felt satisfying when you did save all these Little Sisters. But that is actually what the endings of the game depended upon. If you saved every single Little Sister, you got the very good ending. I think if you saved all but 2 or 3 Little Sisters, you got a bad ending. And then, of course, if you harvested a lot of them or all of them, you got the very, very bad ending. Now, those 2 bad endings were effectively the same. Now, I think the best way, because of course my recollection of Bioshock, even though I just watched the endings on YouTube, the best way and the most informative way that I can tell you what the endings are about is to read them off Wikipedia or the Bioshock wiki. So it says that if the player harvested more than 1 Little Sister during the journey through Rapture, so it was actually 1 Little Sister, my apologies, Jack will turn upon the Little Sisters who helped him to kill Fontaine. It is assumed that he killed them. After this, the cinematic shows the submarine coming up on the wreckage of the crashed plane, but it is soon surrounded by dozens of bathyspheres filled with splicers who killed everyone in it and take control of the submarine, which happens to hold nuclear weapons. All of this is narrated by Tenenbaum as she, dejectedly, condemns Jack for his actions. Then the bad ending where you harvest every single little sister in the game. It's the exact same ending as the other one that I just mentioned, but Tenenbaum is, I guess, a bit more aggressive in her tone. She's a bit angrier at Jack and what he did to all of the little sisters. And then if you rescue every little sister or save all of them but one, the alternative good ending is shown. So essentially, the little sisters offer you the key to the city, you accept them, you go up in a bathysphere with all the little sisters in there, you've rescued them, you've helped them out, and you go on to live a happy life with them. You fulfill their futures, they all get married, they all become mothers, etc. And it's a much nicer, feel-good ending. Tenenbaum's very happy with you, etc. You've created a family. It's a great way to end this game, and I think it's a really good way to reward players if they went through Bioshock without having harvested so many little sisters and taking the harder route, which seemed, but in the end you're rewarded with a much better ending. And to be honest, I don't have much of a gripe with the good ending of the game. I think what I have a gripe with is the bad endings, and twofold. First of all, two of them are essentially exactly the same, and I distinctly remember this when I finished Bioshock 1. Of course, like what many people do, I think the first ending that I ever got for Bioshock 1, it was the not so bad ending. It was the one where Tenenbaum is not as angry, but you still reject the little sisters and you go up with all the splicers and kill humans. That was the first one that I got, so I was like, alright, what are the other endings? I went on YouTube and I, again, distinctly remember this, and then I looked at the very bad ending and thought, oh, well, that's exactly the same. I mean, there's no real difference, honestly, aside from Tenenbaum's tone towards you, from harvesting every single little sister, or harvesting even just 2 little sisters and beyond that, of course, so long as you don't harvest every single one of them. I felt like there could have been more of a difference there, because I think morally, there should be a difference when you've harvested every single little sister versus you've harvested maybe 2, 3, 4, a smaller amount of little sisters. Even in that case, even though you've grappled with the decision, I need some Adam, but I want to save some of them, so you've only harvested some of them, you still get that really bad ending, and I don't think that's justified. It's a huge moral conundrum when you're in Bioshock and when you're informed by Tenenbaum, look, you can save some of these, and Atlas is like, no, you need that Adam, you need to be able to survive. In your head you think, alright, maybe I can just save most of them, but still harvest some of them here and there to get some Adam to help me survive and to help me fight off these enemies. But even in that instance, you still get the bad ending, and an ending that's very similar to harvesting all of them. And I think there should have been a much more of a distinction there. And this leads to my second point. I would have liked the bad ending to have been even worse. I mean, it's implied, as the Bioshock Wiki article suggests, that you actually kill all the little sisters in both of those bad endings. It doesn't show you explicitly that you've done that, but it can be assumed that because you've harvested, little sisters in the past, that you've probably done the same with the ones that helped you kill Fontaine. But I think the very bad ending should have been much different to the one that we actually got in Bioshock 1. The fact is, in the very bad ending, you've absolutely harvested every single little sister. You've been callous, you haven't cared about them, you were just looking out for yourself, you just want an Adam, and I think in that instance, the little sisters should have turned on you in the end. I think that they should have seen how you treated their fellow little sisters, and they should have attacked you, they should have killed you like they killed Fontaine, they should have treated you exactly like you treated them. And I think that would have been, I guess I use the word satisfying, it's a poor term, but that would have been much more appropriate, I think, for the actions that you would have taken by harvesting every single little sister. I mean, let's be honest, in that instance, you've been a very bad, shitty person. So that revenge story does make more sense in my eyes, as opposed to you just, oh, okay, I'm going to kill the rest of you as well. I mean, I guess it makes sense in terms of you're continuing your history of being a bad person and harvesting every little sister. But nevertheless, I would have liked to have seen the little sisters take revenge on you, I guess to fulfill that vengeance story. You treated them shit, and now we're going to treat you like shit. We're going to kill you like you killed so many of our fellow little sisters. I think that would have been much, much better than what we actually got. And then in terms of the second bad ending where you've harvested some of them and then saved some of them, I think that makes more sense when it sits in the context of the very bad ending as I just described. But as always, I would love to get your thoughts about this topic in the comments below and let me know what you think. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.